Happy 2025 to you all, and we hope that 2025 is your year to thrive. We are so excited to talk with Dana Grinnell today. As Jen and I exhaled and got through the holiday season like many of you did, we looked around and we saw we had homes full of clutter, and we wanted to rethink what was going on in our home life with this new year, both in terms of purging it from it being clean and organized, but at a bigger level, trying to make sure we were living with our families in a clean and eco-friendly way so that we were toxin-free in our homes and also lightweight and a net positive effect on our world. So with that as a backdrop, we're going to dive in to get some very simple and actionable to-dos from Dana Grinnell. She's a thought leader in the space of all things clean living. She's got an amazing platform called Free Living Co. And without further ado, we'll dive in and let you hear from the expert on how to do things lightweight and good for you and good for your global impact, but also easy and affordable. So good for your finances too. Let's dive in.
Welcome to It's Time, powered by Prosper.
All right. Well, Jen, we are so excited for today. It's we're kicking off the new year, thinking about clean mind, clean space, and coming into it with this open canvas is always so exciting. And so we have Dana Grinnell with us today. She's one of our local favorites and a national brand, and launched a very exciting and inspirational business, Free Living Co. is the actual URL. But at Free Living, it's all about how to live with ease and accessibility, but with a mindfulness towards the environment, your physical space, and really the cleanliness and healthiness about what you're bringing into your home and onto yourselves and your family. So with that tiny intro, welcome, Dana. We're so excited to have you with us.
Thank you so much. It's always an honor to chat with amazing women like you. So thank you very much.
Well, we know about you, but if you could just take a few minutes to give a little bit of your context and story about how you got into this space with Free Living, as we start to kind of share some of the lessons learned and best practices with our audience of midlife women.
Yeah, for sure. It was kind of an unconventional path, perhaps, but I spent 17 years in healthcare. And I spent a lot of time observing healthcare and witnessing patients coming in and out of hospitals. And the longer I spent observing these patients, the wheels kind of started to turn on, why, like some patients, it's fairly obvious why they're coming in. Others, I'm like, why is this 32-year-old triathlete coming in for cancer treatments? Like, I just couldn't put the pieces together. It seemed, it didn't seem to make sense. And meanwhile, my corporation, which is ironic because they're actually one of the worst offenders at toxins in products, but yes. I'm very grateful they sent me to a leadership conference with other leaders in the organization, and a woman spoke, and this is probably 15 years ago.
Okay.
And it was the first time I heard, her name was Tierna Lodog. She's actually got some great books out on some of the topics you guys discussed, so it'd be a good read. But she mentioned things like BPA for the first time. I'd never thought about the fact that cans could be lined in a material that was toxic to your health. And she talked about a lot of different subjects, but that was like this kind of awakening. And then the pieces sort of connected. Okay, well, now I kind of am understanding why young people who are seemingly healthy are getting these terrible diseases. And I became really passionate about keeping myself and my family safe as I started to get pregnant and have kids. So fast forward, and this was really more just a personal endeavor. And, if people would ask me, I'd share what I'm doing or what products I'm using, but it really wasn't meant to be a business. Fast forward, a decade and a half. Last summer, I was coming home from Costco with the cleanest laundry detergent I thought I could find at Costco. We're a busy, stinky, dirty family of 5 who lives in the mountains. And I was just doing my best. And this laundry detergent leaked in the back of my car and turned this crazy purple color. And it just dawned on me. I'm like, that was a chemical reaction. This laundry detergent is probably total garbage.
Not
sure
clean.
enough,
Yeah.
I looked it up on ewg.org, which is a wonderful resource if you're starting to dip your toe in the waters of how to live more clean. And I'm sure enough, it was a glaring red F, endocrine disruptors, cancer causers, like all these ingredients that were harmful to health. And here I'd been laundering my whole family's sheets, clothes, towels, and this laundry detergent. And I just sort of had enough. I felt like I was knowledgeable enough, careful enough, and yet this product still crept into my house. And I just thought, gosh, I wish someone would do the research and just make it easy to find these products, because greenwashing is so rampant. You can't trust stores, you can't trust brands.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, you know what? Like, why don't I just do that myself? So,
And thank you for doing it.
yeah, of course. Yeah, it's been a wonderful journey, but that was really, that was how it started.
Well, but your product line it's everything from, cleaning products to skincare to the plants you have in your home. I mean, it's a breadth of offerings. So kind of walk us through, if you were to talk to midlife women and say, hey, if you care about your environment, which most people care about where they live in their space, these are the places to start to kind of help clean up your act, I guess, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, for sure. And it's really overwhelming. And I've been doing this about a year, and I find that there's like a few different types of thought processes out there. One is, I don't even want to know about it. Just leave me be. I want my time. I
Yes.
want my Bounty. I want my Neutrogena, whatever the products are. Leave me alone.
Yes.
And there's that mentality. And then it runs the gamut all the way to people who are like almost obsessive and like changing out everything, but also like, getting down to the nitty gritty of building materials and all that, which, I mean, there's time for that in your journey, but that's certainly not the first step you need to take.
Yeah.
So I kind of think about it, food is obviously a big area. And I know that you have discussed this a lot on your podcast and just in the work you're doing with women. So food is a big one. And I would say I try to keep things really simple, and like one little change can make a really big difference.
Mm-hmm.
So with food, my recommendation is just avoid pesticides. If you're buying produce, try to buy organic. If you're shopping in the middle aisles, look for organic. And if you're shopping in the middle aisles, also look to try to avoid preservatives. I think those are two key things. If you can just avoid those, you're like 95%.
And so when you say preservatives, Dana, are there like a couple of, when I'm looking at labels, sometimes there's just so much. And first of all, I have to have like, my reading glasses on to read them. Are there one or two that are like big offenders that you're like, just look for these and
Yeah, you sort of nailed why this is so difficult. The print is small. There's tons of ingredients on lots of products.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, to keep it really simple, I mean, the EWG restricted list, they have kind of an unacceptable list, and they have a restricted list.
Mm-hmm.
Each of those documents are about 800 pages, PDF, 10-point font. So it's like,
okay,
so you need to flip through while you're shopping.
Yeah, that's not on your phone. Yeah, yeah.
Nor are you going to memorize it, nor could even a PhD chemist probably do that. So my recommendation is look for limited ingredients. If you can find things, if you're looking for almond butter, peanut butter, if it just says almonds, bet, right? If it has 5 or 6 ingredients, there's probably other things in there like sugar, preservatives, that kind of stuff. So look for limited ingredients. If you can't pronounce it, or if there's capital letters and dashes and numbers, like bad signs.
That's a clue. So, okay, yes.
So that's probably my best recommendation, rather than picking like one preservative, because there's also like, for example, parabens can have 50 different ways of stating paraben on the so it's hard to just kind of pick one. But I would just say keep it simple, look for limited ingredients. If you can't pronounce it, or if there's lots of hyphens and weird letters, then just skip it.
Are there, sorry, go ahead, Jen.
Oh, thanks. So we've used this term a couple of times. I just want to make sure people understand it when we talk about what an endocrine disruptor is, because that's a lot of the reasons that we might be choosing different products for ourselves and for our kids. Will you dive into that a little bit more and explain kind of what you mean by an endocrine disruptor?
Sure. Yeah. So, and I'm sure, Dr. Jen, I'm sure you could get into much more detailed how the pathways work in your body from your thyroid and from, but essentially your endocrine system is what manages your hormones. And, from all the reading I've done, from all the work I've done in clean living, your hormones are sort of everything when it comes to how you feel, how your mood, your physical form, and then there's a lot of like, autoimmune and lots of illnesses that actually are caused by endocrine disruption. So, I mean, to me, you read a lot of things, and depending on the specialist, they'll tell you like the gut is everything. The whatever, your circulation system is everything. I think the endocrine system impacts everything. And so it's certainly something to not ignore. And that's one thing. I mean, I think your question is like, where do you start? food being a key one, but also thinking about the products you're bringing in your home and I'm putting on your body, because so many of those have proven well-researched ingredients that can cause endocrine disruption. And
Mm-hmm.
then if you feel like you're running to your internal med doctor, even your holistic health with certain things like, oh, I've gained 10 pounds, or, oh gosh, I have brain fog, or gosh, I just don't feel well. I feel like I need to go on antidepressants. I mean, we could probably trace a lot of that back to some form of endocrine disruption.
Yeah.
I think that's key, right? Is connecting those dots, because I think sometimes, or probably often, healthcare providers don't trace back far enough to see, I've never been asked, what do I put on my body?
Right.
I've never been asked that by a healthcare provider. Like,
Yeah.
what type of lotion do you use? What type of soaps are you using? What types of detergents are you using?
Yeah.
And so I think that that's such a important for consumers to understand, and us being an own health advocate to understand that connection. So thank you for diving in there.
Yeah. Well, and I think something that is important for every woman and really any human to understand. I mean, our bodies can handle a lot, right? Like, we have all these amazing organs that help us filter through toxins and help us get rid of toxins once they enter the body. And there's quite frankly some toxins we just can't avoid. But there's also this threshold, right? And, I've read different thought leaders calling it like a chemical load threshold. And that's kind of, to me, what makes sense in my head. But like, you have this ability to maintain a certain level of a chemical load and your body can manage it. You're at a homeostasis. You're bringing chemicals in, but your body's able to kind of flush through them and reconcile and get rid of them, or, maintain homeostasis. And then there's this like crux where you go out of homeostasis. And that's when things happen, right, to your health. And I think the hardest part about toxins, and it's why I totally understand when people just want to run for the hills and hide under their mattress, because it's very confusing, but it's also kind of out of sight, out of mind. And you don't know what that threshold is. And so thinking like, oh, the shampoo I'm using, if I use it for too many days in a row, it might hit that threshold and I might get cancer. Like, that just doesn't really go through people's thought process, nor, as you just pointed out, it doesn't go through health practitioners' thought processes as well. So, I mean, for me, it's like, I just feel like it's important to do everything I can, progress over perfect, and just do everything I can to kind of keep that chemical load as low as possible, because I just don't know what my threshold is and when it might, when the meter may
tip it. I remember looking at this maybe, 12 or 13 years ago, when it was early and having kids. And so we were just, you get curious, you're researching what's eco-friendly, what's safe. And there's a lot more control. You feel like you have control because you are baiting them and you're making sure that they've got the right lotions and the right foods. But one of the things that I found helpful was this idea that, like, what is okay in Europe and sort of the stamps of approval in Europe versus what's okay in the United States. There's this massive gap. So, I haven't looked at it in years, but there were specific brands where it was like, you just need to, if you have to have a shortcut, there's some brands that you can help shortcut, and you can also check to see if this product is allowed in the EU. And that's a quick indicator on if it's relatively clean. Does that framework still hold true?
Yeah, no, I think it's a good, I mean, Europe is definitely stricter. Similarly, Israel and there's some other like leading countries who really are, have done a really good job restricting ingredients, and they've done it for decades. And we're in the US, we're way behind. I think we're like the third worst or something in the world to restricting the government actually taking a stand on ingredients and on, additives to food and products. I think the last regulation was like in the 1930s or something crazy. So yeah, I think I've found it to be a little tricky to really look at what Europe approves and doesn't approve. The resources that I've found to be most helpful that really are consumer focused are ewg.org. I alluded to that a little earlier.
Yep.
They certainly look at the European restrictions, and they base a lot of their unacceptable and a lot of their restricted lists on what Europe has done or the waters they've forged. So I find them to be great. They have an app called Healthy Living, and you can download it on your phone. You can scan everything from household, personal care to food items while you're in the grocery store with just the barcode.
It's a good one to know. Yeah.
It's great. And I find it to be super helpful. They have a lot of products in there. You will find products that aren't in there. You will find products that, the last time they reviewed it was like 2015, and maybe the formula's changed since then. So it's not perfect, but it's a start. The other one that I think is probably the strictest globally and has a more holistic approach to ingredient evaluation. It's called Made Safe.
Oh,
They're a
okay.
little lesser known. They don't have an app. You kind of have to go on their website and search for the brands and the categories and the products that they've reviewed. But they take an incredibly in-depth look at the ingredient, but they go into even, what it would do to the aquatic life and terrestrial life. So they're looking at kind of a system-wide approach. And I can tell you firsthand how strict and thorough they are. I'm working on a private label, my first product that I'll be launching under my brand. It's a skincare line for teenage girls.
Awesome.
Super, super excited about it. That'll be out
Awesome. We got some buyers on this call right now.
Yep, we've
We got
already
teenage
talked about
girls
it.
in the house.
Awesome. Yes, but I have been Made Safe's been consulting on it, and I mean we've literally sent thousands of documents down to, we've had to switch suppliers of certain ingredients. Even though the
Wow.
ingredient's the same, we've switched suppliers of that ingredient because it hasn't met their standards. So I would say looking at those two is probably a more consumer friendly approach than trying to dive into what Europe's done. Because the other tricky thing with Europe is there are formulations that are brands that are okay in Europe and they've changed the formula for the US.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yes.
you can't always trust that the brand is the same or
Yeah.
the ingredients are the same.
So, I mean, as you're talking it through, there's this tough triangle. It feels like there's like, okay, quality, and you've got this filter and then these other resources people can use for the quality filter, but then there's the cost and the ease filter. And so you're working on the ease filter with making it accessible online. Is there anything that you're seeing that's helpful on the cost curve? Like there's enough people demanding this product that the cost is getting accessible for, more than just kind of the people who have the income to afford it.
Yeah, great question. And what I found, I think there's a lot of perceptions out there on clean living and on clean products. Some of them may have some merit, and some of them are totally inaccurate. There are actually, I mean, and the wonderful thing is we live in this age where there is a lot of awareness, and there are people out there that really care. And when I say people, I mean like founders of brands, who have
Yes.
either been through a health issue themselves or, like one of my biggest brands, Attitude, they have some wonderful, really cost friendly, really earth friendly products. And, he launched his whole company because his wife got pregnant and he felt like we needed to do better. He wanted his child to have access to better products. And this is a company based out of Canada. So I'm finding that, and I try to carry the widest range of price points that I can. Because I think it's important that this isn't a hierarchy thing. I feel like everyone should have the ability and the access to clean products. So I think it's a little bit of I mean, you may have to dive in a little deeper than just, kind of the first product that pops up, especially like the brands who have really big marketing budgets, they're probably charging you more. But if you dive in deep, there's some really wonderful brands and you can keep it really reasonable. I've been working with schools and actually fitness facilities on swapping out their products because clearly they touch a lot of people, but these products have to work. And particularly with the schools, they have to be really cost effective. There's a wonderful product called Force of Nature. It's, in my opinion, it's the only true EPA registered hospital grade disinfectant that I've found that is not ammonia or bleach based, which are no-nos when it comes to clean living.
Yes.
And once you buy there's a little appliance, but after that, to produce the solution, it's $1 for a spray bottle. So it actually becomes a cost savings.
That's
great. Family or the business, depending on, no, that's not the case for every single product, but that's one example of how it actually can be super cost effective.
Yeah. That's great to see.
And then there's also DIY, there's a lot of wonderful DIY websites. Laundry detergent, like my cleanest laundry detergents are like 3 or 4 ingredients. You could certainly make that yourself.
Yeah, that's true.
That was going to be my next question. Yeah. Is like, how much of this are, if you have the time, again, it gets back to what are, different types of costs. There's opportunity costs, time costs, financial costs. But, could these be things that you can do yourself?
100%. 100%. And honestly, some of the clean swaps are really not that time consuming. I mean, like vinegar is a wonderful cleaning agent. In fact, I know both of you work out at the Bow Collective, and they're the very first fitness facility in Park City to convert to clean products, which is just so lovely and speaks to Wit and her commitment to love and care for the community. But the wipes that we just put in there are a vinegar base versus the wipes that we had before, which were ammonia based. So vinegar is a great substance. Baking soda, lemon, using good old fashioned hot water. I mean, there's a lot of things you can do depending on the job you're trying to clean.
Yes.
There's a lot of things you can do that are DIY, and there's so many wonderful. I mean, honestly, if you just get on Google, there's so many wonderful blogs and sites, even brands. Branch Basics is a really forward-thinking brand, and they put out, if you sign up for their newsletter, they put out really awesome content outside of their products. They just sent out this big recipe guide for the holidays, which I thought was cool. They don't sell anything to do with food. But they oftentimes they'll put, DIY recipes and that kind of thing. So
that's fantastic.
Just still being a little resourceful. But it can also, it can also be super easy. So.
Yeah. Well, you talked about making product for teenage girls, which is awesome, but it made me think a little bit. Sometimes the challenge is how to communicate the importance of this to kids. I mean, you're a parent of 3 kids and of all age spectrum, and Jen and I as well. And I found that when they were younger, it was just easier to control the environment and control the food and control but now they have very specific things they want to buy, especially in the body care, cosmetic arena. They know brands, and even the teenage boys have specific brands they want to use. Are you finding just like a soundbite way to describe it to your teenagers and young kids about why this is important to make a choice for a clean product versus maybe a product they saw on TikTok or a product they see in social media?
Yeah, it's a really good question because, gosh, we live in a day where social media influencers is so powerful. And, I think if we think greenwashing and brands and stores are bad, like the influencer scene makes it so much worse. But I've also found I spend a lot of time consulting with teenagers in an effort to put together the skincare line that we're going to launch. Yeah. And I find that they're really receptive. Almost more receptive than we are as women. Yes. And once you give them some, little details as to why this is important, they dive in deep. And, I watch girls like, oh gosh, I can't use this face cleanser anymore. I watch their wheels spin and them kind of like really quickly commit to just not using that product. Now, I mean, you mentioned the influencer scene and the TikTok thing, and and maybe those waters get muddied, and maybe those products find their way back on the Christmas list. But I do find them to be more receptive than our generation, and especially when it comes to sustainability and plastic and packaging and that kind of thing. I think they've learned a lot of that at school, and they're hearing more and more about that, and they're really receptive to it. So it gives me a lot of hope and encouragement. But you're right. I mean, especially like I have a 15-year-old boy, and Lindsay, I know you do too. Yes. He really wants to wear cologne. I'm like, you can't, and so that's kind of maybe like a product that goes on my list to produce. But there's just certain products that I would just say, as a parent, stand firm and just say, no, I'm sorry. It's too disruptive, especially when they're going through these teenage changes and their endocrine systems are going haywire anyway. Yes. So layer in those added disruptors is just not a good idea.
Yeah.
So kind of getting like super nitty gritty practical. We started with food and kind of, and something that we've talked a lot about like shopping the perimeter of the grocery store, using Whole Foods, like all of those such great tips. If we're going to move on to like a couple other areas, which maybe we'll separate as like personal care, kind of what we're putting on our bodies, and then our households, given the fact that we are, kind of midlife women are usually the ones that are bringing product into our house. Like, where do we start? Like laundry detergent, what we're cleaning our counters with, washing our dishes with. Like, if we can make 1 or 2 changes, what do you think are the most impactful changes that we should try first?
Yeah, no, that's such a great question. So I always say, like, when you're going to start converting products, think about what goes in your mouth or touches food that goes in your mouth, and think about what goes on your skin, right? Because those you are ingesting, or those are going into your body. Those are like the number one things to start to shift. To go back to the food where we talked about preservatives and pesticides with personal care products and household products, if you can eliminate fragrance, you're doing really well.
That's a great one to flag. Yeah. I think
it's in everything, and almost every product you find, even on the shelves of natural stores or stores that claim to be healthy. So that's just a simple one. Just start looking at the products you have and start getting rid of that.
And what about when they say natural fragrance? Is there such a thing? is natural.
So I know it's tough. And sometimes there'll be brands that I'll evaluate and want to carry in my store. And I will get on the phone with the founder, the product development manager, whoever it is. And, so the challenge for the brand is when there's a scent, it's a proprietary, proprietary scent. They don't want people to steal their scent. It's like Coca-Cola not wanting you to steal their formula.
Yeah.
And so some brands could be doing that with, the right intentions, right? They could be using all natural fragrances and it could be safe and all the things, but it's not disclosed. So I think you either have to shop at a shop like mine where we really do dive into those ingredients with the manufacturer, if it does say natural flavor or natural fragrance, or just skip it, honestly. Most brands, like if there's a lavender laundry detergent, most brands will say lavender.
Yeah.
So, and there's plenty of them out there that disclose the ingredients. So I would just stick with those.
Perfect.
Yeah. But yeah, fragrance is a big one. So for me, and the other thing, and you kind of asked, like, how do you start to think about shifting? Think about things that touch your food, touch your body, and then think about things that you don't really mind. I mean, like, is there anyone who's super picky about their dish pods? Probably not, right? Or their dishwasher, So if that's something that you like, if you've used Cascade for years and you're like, as long as the dishes get clean, I don't really care what I'm using, maybe that's a good one to shift. And to be honest, Defunkify dish pods. They're pods, which a lot of people like, but they're a water-based, it's not plastic, it's a water-based wrap. Yeah. And it's my number one seller in the whole store. Yeah. So start there. If you aren't super happy with your lotion and there's toxic ingredients or fragrance in it, okay, well, maybe that's a good place to go swap and try something different. So just start with those like kind of low-hanging fruit where it's not like your eye cream that you can't live without. It's something that's like an easy swap. Start there. And then you'll gain some experience and some confidence in the process and in the products, and they're not necessarily natural. And most of them are made with natural ingredients, but there are some synthetic ingredients that are safe. So it's more clean and safe products that is the focus.
So, I mean, this is kind of maybe it's too hard to do, but one of the things that Jen and I get really excited about is data and testing, pre and post. We think of ourselves kind of as lab like we run all of our tests on the things we're trying. Have you ever played around with, okay, maybe there's some sort of pre-test, like I don't know if it's metals or whatever are the toxins that you might test for in your system. And then you would go through a cleaning up of your environment and your product, and then you do a post test. Is there something that people were interested in that you've got experience with?
I think that is the next step. And maybe that's what's needed for people to get fully committed to the fact that toxins do have this dramatic impact on your health. Mm-hmm. There's one company that I know has done this, and I've actually toyed around with like, how could we do this locally? Yeah. Maybe the three of us need to figure this out.
Let's figure this out. Yes.
But Branch Basics, they are doing a pilot program where they are taking a bunch of biomarkers. They're putting people into a healthy environment where there's no toxins. They're keeping them there for 10 days. Feeding them whole foods, clearing all the toxins of all the products that are used, having them do things like meditation and walks in nature and that type of thing. And I don't think they've published them yet. I just had a conversation with one of the executives, but they said the results are astounding. But more than the actual biomarker results, it's how the people feel.
Yeah,
like they leave after 10 days and feel like a different person, and that's where the commitment comes, right? Because now they're like, oh gosh, I can feel this way, and it really wasn't that hard, kind of enjoyable.
Yes.
So anyway, really I'm not aware of like certain biomarkers to test, but maybe that's something we should discuss and explore here in Park City, and even with some of our, audience nationally.
Yeah.
That's super interesting.
Check out.
It's a great idea, to try to think about what changes. And, I feel like my family, as long as what they're reaching for is there, whether it's lotion or shampoo or dishwashing detergent, as long as there's something there that they can use, what it is not as important. And so just trying to make some of these substitutions and almost maybe even blind them, say, does anybody feel different? People notice a difference. It's fascinating.
No, and there's actually, so there is some research out there that has it doesn't take long to start to have changes in your system. There was a study on parabens and phthalates, and they found in 28 days, just by limiting parabens and phthalates, you were able to 98% eliminate them from your bloodstream.
Yeah.
So,
I think that
so it
is
doesn't
cool.
take long. And I read one, they had teenage girls, they were looking at teenage girls in makeup, and they had them just eliminate parabens from their makeup. And it was like in 14 days, the levels in their blood had reduced by like 40% or something along those lines. I'm
Yeah.
not quoting the exact
Yeah.
numbers, but it was, it was significant. And that was just, it doesn't take long.
Yeah.
So it's something that you can change and have immediate health effects.
Yeah. And
Positive.
I'm thinking you have this on your website, so I'll go find it. But I'm just envisioning this one pager that I could have like the family meeting powwow with and sort of say, look, these are the 5 or 6 things we need to just clean up here. And here's why. And let's just zero base it. It doesn't have to be like a super stressful thing, but let's just slowly get through the bathroom, get through the kitchen, get through the laundry room, and start to tackle this for 2025. Why not? And then do our own kind of pre and post baseline testing.
I love it. No, I don't have anything like that on the website, Lindsley, so don't waste your time scouring for it. But I think
I
the
think
whole
it'd be
idea
good.
is some family
Yeah.
talking points.
Yeah.
And there's things, for teenagers. I'm really passionate about teenagers, one, because I have one, but also
Yeah.
because we have a infertility pandemic globally, and one in
Yes.
6 people go through infertility globally.
Yes.
And so it's a problem. And that wasn't the case, 20, 30 years ago. So I feel like the teenagers have this opportunity now to change their trajectory with things like that.
Mhm.
And, if so, maybe like fertility isn't such a thing that a 15-year-old boy would care about at this point, but acne is.
Yeah, acne is, yeah, and
There's like some
bad
signs.
odors are, things that are
Yeah,
out of you're sweating out of your system are.
exactly. So I think that's an awesome idea to put together just some talking points that are relevant to that age group. And even like your husband or,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
other family
Why it's
members that
worth
might be
doing
more
this, yeah, because it's not that hard to do, but it will require a little bit of a change, and it's different
Yeah.
brands than they're used to having or wanting to pull off, and here's the why.
Yep. No, exactly right. Exactly right.
Well,
Well,
before we run out of time, I
yeah,
know we wanted to also touch on sustainability and some of
yes.
your ideas around sustainability, etc. So tell us more about that, because I do think that that is something that truly resonates with our kids and their generation. Like they've grown up with these
Yes.
ideas of sustainability more than we have. And so I know sometimes it's my kids saying, no, mom, we need to do this way. Like you're doing it, that's your old ladyish coming in. This is the way we do things now. So
Yeah. No, and it's interesting. I polled the teenagers I've been working with on the skincare line, and many of them said that they would pay almost double the price if there is, like, one of them used a clothing example. There were some jeans that had been, the fabric had been reused or recycled, and she was willing to pay almost double for those jeans. Now, mind you, there could have been a TikToker that, sent her down that path as well. But no, I mean, sustainability, and what I found in working with all these brands is it is completely synergistic with their businesses. When we're talking about toxins, and I kind of alluded to that in talking about Made Safe, when there's shampoo that goes down the drain, that doesn't just disappear into thin air, right? It goes into our waterways and into the earth. And so there is, that side of sustainability. And then there's obviously like this massive problem with waste and plastic and, the production of plastic and all the toxins that come from all that. So when it comes to sustainability, I mean, the number one thing, again, if we're thinking simple, we talked about food, products, fragrance, pesticides, sustainability, like to the extent you can reduce or eliminate plastic from your life,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a great, simple first step. And now I think it is impossible to completely eliminate plastic. I mean, there's so many life-saving technologies that require it, right? So we're not going to get rid of plastic, but if you can just do your part in your own home, you're number one going to reduce the toxins, improve your health, but also, and save the planet, limit waste going to the landfills, that type of thing. So yeah, our skincare line, that's been a huge challenge because beauty, I'm sure you've seen a lot of the statistics, a lot of the, the images out there. Beauty is a huge contributor to landfills.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if people know this, but when you recycle plastic, if it's too small, it actually does not get recycled. It does not make its way through the sorter. So like little caps, if you're using like a moisturizer jar, much of that just goes straight to the landfill because it doesn't even make it through the sort. So
I did not know that.
yeah. Yep. So it's, and you're actually better off throwing it away.
Okay.
There's a great book called Mothering Earth. I'm actually planning to include that in our media club.
Oh yeah,
Probably
we've got to talk about
Yeah, we got to talk about that too.
Yes.
Yeah, she talks a lot about that. Like you're actually better off, and this is a gal who went zero waste. You're better off throwing it away if it's something you know won't truly make it through the recycling filter, because you're clogging up the whole process of the
Okay.
good things
That's
actually
good.
getting
That's good to know too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
So I don't know if I answered your question, but I think, thinking about sustainability there, there's the toxic side of it and the production and the, and where all these products end up, but there's also the waste. And so just trying to.
Absolutely.
Well, one of the things that you started to share with us, and I'd love to hear more about it here, is thinking about sustainability and some of the thoughts with Amazon.
Yes. So Amazon, it's funny, when I launched this e-commerce business, I didn't consider Amazon to be a competitor, because I just felt like I'm this small boutique mom just trying to do her best for people out there who want this type of service. Yes. Well, it turns out, if you have an e-commerce business, if you sell product, Amazon's your competitor.
Yes.
A couple things, number one, I'm sure you've made the one order and gotten 5 boxes, right? So there's that environmental impact. They have the pockets, and they do plant trees and try to offset carbon emissions and all that, which is great. And, and that's, I think, companies of that size, that's what they've got to try to do. But there's actually a cost component, which I thought, I don't think most people know of. And I didn't know about this. I actually had a customer point it out to me once, and then I had a brand point it out to me. But when you sell on Amazon, they actually charge you a significant amount. And most brands, especially the smaller brands, a lot of these clean product brands are smaller. They can't afford to take that hit to their margins. And so they actually charge you more. So while Amazon has these amazing algorithms on making you feel like you're getting the best deal out there, you actually may not be getting the best deal out there.
Yeah.
You can look at companies like mine, or even just go directly to the brand, and you'll see. I mean, in some cases, you may get the best price on Amazon. I won't argue that, but in many cases, you're better off going to a business like mine, or to, and also, you might reduce some waste along the way.
Yes, along the way. Yeah. That actually, that does make a ton of sense, because, Amazon's model is dependent on scale. And when you're a small brand, or, a small curated collection of brands, that's not really the driving factor, right? So
yeah. So just keep, for the cost conscious friends out there, keep that in mind when you're shopping on Amazon. I order on Amazon, so we all have
there. It's all part of it.
Yes.
just little bits and pieces. Yeah. Well, as we think about kind of kicking off the new year, one of the things you had, you've done so much to make it easy, right? Your curation of product, you're developing product, and you're across all the categories. So step one could just be like, go to Free Living Co. You're done. But it sounds like step two is this idea of a subscription box, so it makes it really easy to just plug and play. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, no, and like I mentioned earlier, there's a spectrum of people's journeys in clean products. And if you haven't even thought of it, and this is the first time you're ever hearing about toxins in products, don't feel bad. You're not alone. And so, one step forward in your journey is a great step. There's some people who just don't want to do the work and the research. And, because, for example, laundry detergent, I've got, quite a few laundry detergents, and that may just be too overwhelming to pick. And I would never want that to be a barrier of entry for someone who's trying to get cleaner products into their life. So we launched a subscription box based on customer requests. And essentially we deliver 3 to 6 of our best-selling items each month. And each month I do a little bit of a theme, but it really is just our best-selling full-size items. And the thought is that you will start to get experience with these items, and over time you can start to figure out your favorites. And instead of, rebuying the more toxic counterparts, you can replace with this products. Yeah. So we do 3 to 6 items. We also give little tips on detoxifying your home and your space. And then you get a 20% discount off reorders of those items for the entire month.
It's awesome.
Super cool.
It's an easy way to get started. Well, I know we're running a little bit shortly on time, but I think one of the other things, you're such a great example for so many midlife women, is this idea of, you can redefine the path you want to take in life, to go and say, I'm going to start up a business 18 months ago, which is an e-commerce business, and now you're developing product. That's exciting, and it's a huge undertaking. And you also are in the thick of it with family still in the house and needing carpools and needing meals, and potentially parents who are needing the same. So are there any kind of inspirations or tips or lessons learned for women as they're starting to recalibrate how they want to show up in the world with the path that you've just been traversing.
Yeah, no, like I said, I spent a long time in the corporate world and was working my way up the food chain, paychecks, titles, all the things. And I think it was a very egocentric part of my life. And I had this very small glimmer of like, what am I doing? And I just felt this like urge. I'm like, this is not who I want to be or what I want to be doing. And I don't know what I want to do or who I want to be, but it's not this.
Yes.
I was traveling a lot. I had young kids at the time. So being an entrepreneur is not easy. I wouldn't say the stress is less. The paychecks are less.
Yes, we know that. We know that.
Yeah.
We know that phase of the curve. It's a curve, you know.
You can give yourself whatever title you want, but I think for me, it was like the freedom was really important, and the ability to like drive my kids to school and be at all their
Yes.
sporting events. The ability to do what I believe in and what I really love, I think was another driving factor. And then I think as middle-aged women, I think we have a superpower of having life experience and being able to hold ourselves a little more accountable in an authentic way.
Yes.
So, in my 20s and 30s, I don't think I would have been able to look in the mirror when something didn't go my way and say, okay, what do I need to do to pivot? Or what am I learning from this? Like, clearly this is laid in my path for a reason.
Yes.
So I think that accountability piece of just having the maturity and the humility and and the kind of take it as it comes. I think you get that more when you're in your 40s and 50s, which makes entrepreneurship a lot more approachable, because if you don't have that, I don't think it's possible to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Well, I think in one of your recent newsletters, I love it. I love the letter you write. So, I mean, thank you, and keep writing it because it always makes me smile. But the recent one is, because Jen and I talk a lot about longevity, and I think your framing of it was momgevity and me-gevity. And I love that. It's like, that's why we show up to do all these things, is really for the me-gevity component of it. And if you're a mom, it's the momgevity too.
Yeah, yes. No, for sure. That's in this business of clean living. I don't want to take the approach of like beating people over the head with scary things like you're going to get cancer if you use this laundry detergent. Like, I don't want that to be the message. I want the message to be it's about health and wellness and, not only longevity, but health span, right? Like
Right.
creating this runway where you can live well and healthy all the way until you take your last breath.
Yes. Yeah.
And for me, like I've kind of been through this. I'm kind of trying to reframe my wellness routine. I think a lot of people in our generation got stuck in fad diets and
Yes.
trying to be bikini ready when, you just may not have a body that's meant to be in a bikini, and that's okay.
Yes. Making
I'm one of those. I work out with both of you, and that may not be your case. But for me, it's like, I think I needed to reframe. I needed like a big overhaul of how I viewed my health and wellness, because it's always been about aesthetics and look. And so finding that why, for me, it's my kids. I think you got to find your own, right? Maybe it is the me-gevity where you want to feel and look your best your whole life. Maybe it's about your partner or your parents or your pets or whatever it is, but like find that why.
Yes.
And I think it makes it a lot easier to, eat the salad for lunch, to take that walk when you really don't feel like, and it's snowing and raining outside, and
Yes.
to start to like be willing to just swap out products and start to get, or maybe it's, make your own.
Yes.
But I think if you find that why, it's a lot easier to make those healthier swaps, which will set you up beautifully for a long and healthy life.
Yeah,
absolutely. And I think before we run out of time, we want to make sure we get to, Lindsay and I talk about it a lot, this sense of community and what that means. And like, we're really fortunate that three of us have it because we see each other in the early mornings when, and we connect through the day. But tell us about your new idea about this media club and what that means and what you have envisioned there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think we're in such an incredible age where there are amazing thought leaders who have science backing. And Dr. Jen, I put you in this category where you spent years as a practicing physician and you've taken a step towards this holistic way of living, which I don't think our parents had that sort of shift of healthcare. And so I just think there's so much information out there. There's incredible podcasts, incredible books. There's so much information. And I just really want to make it fun and accessible to everyone.
Yes.
So I had this idea of launching, like, I'm calling it a media club, because I know we don't always have time to read books cover to cover. Even though I find a lot of these books are super engaging and you can read them in, a short plane flight or car ride or whatever. So yeah, come January, I'm going to pilot and test out this idea of a media club. The plan is to do biweekly discussions. One would be on a podcast and one would be on a book. So you can pick your poison. If you're more of a podcaster and just want to hop on once a month and join the discussion, great. If you love reading books, if you want to do both, we welcome it. We're going to set up some in-person meetings here in Park City, location TBD, but we're going to do some of that. And then I want to make sure that we are making it accessible to people who don't live in Park City. So we'll do like a virtual option as well.
Yes.
Yeah, so every month we'll pick different topics, different thought leaders, different, people that are putting science-backed information out there, and in hopes that we can all learn together and do what's best for our health and our family.
That's awesome. Well, Jen and I are also all about making it easy to live better now and for the long haul. And that is exactly what you're doing, is making it easy for people to do that. So before we sign off, I want to make sure people know exactly where to find you. So give us all of your handles on how they can just take the thought out of this process and just go right to the solution, because you've teed it up and beautifully.
Awesome.
Yes. Well, I think, as an entrepreneur, you wear lots of hats. Social media may not be my current strength, but I'm working on a plan for that. So social media is @_Free Living Co. on Instagram, if that's your poison. @Free Living Co. is pretty much the handle on most platforms. Lindsley, you commented on the newsletter. That one, I'm putting a lot of energy and effort in bringing in expert contributors. I also write myself, so that's a good one to sign up for on the website. And then, of course, to find clean products, blog posts, all that type of stuff, freelivingco.co is the website.
Awesome. Yay. Thank you for taking time out to spend it with us and to share this, the why, and then the easy how with midlife women.
Yes. Oh my gosh, my pleasure. And keep doing the work you're doing. I think it's all additive to this, this new way of living. I think it's really exciting.
It is.
Thank you.
It is.
Awesome. Take care, everybody.
Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, I feel a lot better about going into 25 and being able to make sure we are living toxin free and also having a good impact on the world around us. Thank you, Dana, for making that easy to do, affordable, and accessible in a way that we can kind of co-opt our family to be in on this revision in our day-to-day lives in our homes. We look forward to talking with you next week when we'll tackle an idea that's been percolating with Jen and me over the past months around how to really mentor or parent or be kind of the highest impact influence on younger women as we are taking our lessons learned in midlife. And we've been talking a lot about how to power up the high half that's in front of us. But part of that is making sure that we translate and transfer the expertise and the wisdom that we've had to sometimes earn the hard way and sometimes lucked upon, and be able to share it in a way that's high impact for the women who are coming through this journey a few years behind us. So we'll talk about that in our next episode, because it's time. Please share and rate and like this show, and we can't wait to continue the dialogue with you on our next episode. Until then, thank you. It's time.